Great.
Oh, now we're recording.
Okay, thanks. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming to this fabulous first Zoom session for everybody's favorite class, Research Methods. What I wanted to start with was just to answer questions that I've been getting from all of you in my email, in my Blackboard, and my telephone, my mailbox. It seems like a lot of people have these sort of questions, and I'm glad you picked up on them. We have those questions too. So the first thing has to do with the thesis versus the project, and what are we doing in this research methods class anyway? Are those things that you've been thinking about? Okay, so in the past we used to have mostly theses, and those required some kind of method, and we'd usually use a quantitative method involving statistics, or we'd use a qualitative method, which would be interviews, ethnography, participant observation, content analysis, web sphere analysis. There are lots of options in there, and some of them were mixed methods. But in the last, I'd say 6 years, since we've been having the program completely online, we've moved a lot more towards projects. And so the question is, if you're doing a project, are you doing research? Well, I don't see everyone saying like, oh, let me just answer that question. So it depends on the project, right? For some people, their project might involve research, but when we're talking about research methods here, we usually mean some kind of primary data collection that we do ourselves. So we choose a method, and then we go out and collect some information, and then we analyze it, and then we come up with some results, and usually we write a longer paper, so longer than 50 pages. You know, sometimes there are 100 pages, sometimes there are 200 pages. But that's kind of what we call as a traditional thesis. And a lot of our students really didn't enjoy that process very much, and they weren't getting closer to their goals by doing it. So we've been doing a lot more projects. Some of the projects involve research, like you go out and you find out what a group of people needs, and then you make your project in order to help fulfill their needs. But I would say most of them don't involve research in the way that we normally think of it. So all of you will be doing literature review, you'll be doing library research. That's not what we mean by this, right? So that's where I feel like there's been a lot of confusion with that. So in terms of this class, we're trying to design it so that it fits your needs better. And in the past, we had the sense that, you know, in order to get a master's degree, everybody should at least know the difference between qualitative research and quantitative research, should understand what some of the methods are, should be able to read a scholarly article and judge it based on a little bit of knowledge about what those methods are about. And we've shifted a little bit, although we still think it's important that you know the difference between the methods and that you can identify what's useful about them and that kind of thing. We don't necessarily think you have to go ahead and use those methods to their fullest. So if you're doing a project like, let's say you're putting together the web presence for an organization, you're going to be doing library research about virtual community, about web design, about whatever it is that you think your project has. And you might even talk to some people, but they wouldn't be considered human subjects. And that's because if you're talking to human subjects about their lives, about their experience, about their perspectives, then they would be human subjects, and you need to get permission to talk to them about those things and then to come analyze them and publish them. But if you're going out to talk to someone about, hey, when you're working, what drives you crazy about this interface? Or what can we do to fix, you know, what are your work-related flow problems? Then you're not really getting into their hearts and minds, and you don't really care about their deeper life experiences, I think. And so it's not the kind of thing that needs to be protected. Like if you do a survey and you say, you know, we're doing a new website, do you prefer blue colors or do you prefer more on the reds? Like those aren't the kinds of things you'd have to ask permission for. Is everybody following me so far? Okay, good. So as far as this class goes, what I'm thinking is that for the people who don't know what their thesis is, let's say if you're in the first year or maybe your second year but you've been going through it slowly, if you're not really sure what it is, you might want to go through the basics group. And the basics group will be doing an introduction to qualitative research methods for the first half of the semester, and then the second half working on an annotated bibliography. So I want to help you with all the skills of doing library research, finding and evaluating information, using Zotero for bibliography, and all that kind of thing. And I know a lot of the students in this class said, I don't have a clue where to get scholarly articles except for Google Scholar. And they say we keep coming across a paywall or something, and that's super annoying. And so those are the students who don't have those basics. I want to help you get to the places where you can do that research more effectively. And so you should never have to pay for anything. What you should do is go through the SUNY Poly Library databases, because as a student, you're already paying for all that. And if it's available, most of them are available to you. If it's not, we can interlibrary loan them and they can get them to you within like 48 hours. So, I wanted to make sure that students aren't buying articles off the internet. Does anyone have any questions so far? All right, is this helpful? These are things you want to know about? Okay, good. So that basics class does teach about research methods in case it's something that you might end up wanting to do. And it's my livelihood. I love qualitative research. It's one of my favorite things to teach about. And so I think it might bring some value to your education. But if, let's say you're in your second year or you're planning to graduate in May, the advanced, is that you, John? You're planning to graduate in May. So the advanced, it would make your life a lot easier. So in a way, you take that quiz just to show me that you can answer those basic questions about qualitative research. You take the open book quiz. So I'll have that on record that, okay, this person does know the difference and won't embarrass us out in the world by saying, I got a master's degree and don't know what this is. But the semester will be spent, there are a few little things right at the beginning. I want you to critique an article in this next module. That's for everybody, just to show that you can. And then after 2 weeks, you'll be working on first your annotated bibliography. So you're going to go out and grab a bunch of articles that are related to the topic of interest, and you'll annotate them. And I can send you to some resources to show some good ways of doing that. And then the second half of the semester, you're going to translate that bibliography into a full-blown literature review. And those are two really different things. So the articles you want to read, process, summarize, that kind of thing. When you do a literature review, it's not just a list of all the articles you read. It has to have some structure behind it. So you'll pick a couple different topics. You'll talk about the most important articles. You'll process them and add a little bit more of value of your own to them. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So I'm going to skip the questions about qualitative versus quantitative for a second. James, are you going to be doing the advanced or the basic?
Probably both.
Probably both.
If possible, because I've never had courses like this before in my life. Never really any hardcore research besides like going on Google.
Okay.
I gotta start from scratch, which isn't a bad thing.
And you're not quite graduating yet, is that right? Why is that funny?
This is my last semester.
This is your last semester, and then you'll take thesis in the spring.
I'm already taking thesis.
You're taking thesis now. Okay. My suggestion to you, you can take a peek in the basics information, but if you really want to graduate, you might want to really focus your energy, just go straight to the literature review.
Okay. Well,
and then, work your hardest on getting that done by the end of the semester, because that's going to be a tight squeeze, I think.
Well, I kind of figured it out that I'm probably going to have to extend the thesis class, pay the extra credit fee, which is fine by me. As long as I get it done and get it done right and move away.
So if you want to be efficient, you'll focus, I can teach you a little bit about where to find the articles and how to evaluate them. I can read through the articles you found, sort of thing. but you want to get your tail as fast as you can to the literature review part and try to make Steve happy.
Yeah,
So that means like sending them to him and that kind of thing. You're in a different situation from the other guys.
Yeah, I tend to do everything backwards.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the one problem I'm having though is what I'm doing my theses on has never really been done.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having a hard time finding articles about it since it's never really been done.
Yes. So our reference librarians are perfect at taking a step back. So you might be searching too detailed, but if you can take a step back and look at, I'm sure some of the things that you're talking about have been done before because we're human beings and we do things right the same way. But the specific, you just might not have the right keywords yet, and you might not have thought of the, some of the concepts that would relate to what you're doing. You're doing the sort of making video casts in a box thing.
Yeah, the project's already been done. So like I said, I'm going backwards with everything.
Okay.
And the system was originally used for gamers to record themselves playing video games. I ended up hooking up 3 different cameras to it, switching back and forth, bringing live feeds from across the world with other people back and forth. So it's kind of a unique system.
Right. Okay, so I would suggest to you focus more on the advanced group, and just get to your lit review as soon as we can.
Okay.
So, William, how about you? Can you remind me where you are in this process? Oh, I'm about half done. Okay, great. And John, May.
Yeah, I'll be taking the thesis class next semester in the spring, so I'll be graduating in May.
Okay. Do you have a sense of whether you'll be using some of these research methods or not?
What I was hoping to do with this semester is kind of test drive some of the ideas that I put down in the Hopes and Dreams memo to kind of figure out, which one has the most substance to it, which one isn't, not overdone or anything, or what would be, I guess, a more suitable topic to go with. So I was kind of hoping to use this semester to kind of figure that out and then go from there.
Sometimes a great way is to read the literature and then see what's been done. And, a lot of times at the end of the paper, it says, I wish someone would do this next, and that can give you an idea too.
Yeah, so I assume I probably would be doing or using some type of method that I learned from this class, or, whether they're interviews or they're, but that's one of the reasons why I was kind of interested in peeking at the basic modules as well, just so I could kind of see, okay, what are the choices from qualitative research methods that I could potentially use. But I agree, because you told me earlier that I should probably go with the advanced as well, based on where I am in my program.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I can certainly do that. But will you be making both groups available, just so for those of us in advance, if we wanted to peek, just get familiarity?
Yeah, I thought it would be done, but this week has just been a little too much. So in the next couple of days, I'll have it up, and then you can choose. And there won't be any end, it won't open or close. It'll just be open for the rest of the semester for both groups.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely focus on advanced, but if the materials for basic could just be made available as a resource, I think that would suit my needs.
Okay.
Try to test drive some of these topics. And so were you going to talk at all about the assignment that's due in 2 weeks where we compare 2 articles? Should we?
I wasn't going to, but I could.
I have a question, and then I can certainly wait until the end.
No, it's good. We're all friends here.
So I was just wondering, with that assignment, do we pick 2 articles that specifically talk about qualitative research and quantitative research, or do we find a topic that we're interested in and find articles that use either qualitative to define the topic? So I wasn't kind of sure what I'm supposed to be looking for in the databases.
thanks for the question. I think it would be the second one. So let's say if you're interested in mobile devices, then you look for one article that uses qualitative methods and one that uses quantitative methods.
Okay.
And it doesn't exactly have to answer the same question, but I want you to get a sense of how they approach the problem differently.
So this could be an opportunity for me to take one of my topic ideas and just see what's out there.
Yeah. And just see what feels right to you, what you can picture yourself doing or not, with also in the back of your mind knowing, I might not even go this research route. I might just do more of a design thing, or I might do more of a, creative thing that doesn't do this at all.
Yeah, but it's a starting point.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, William?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay. I didn't have a microphone a few minutes ago, so I just ran and got something that would work.
Okay. So what's on your mind tonight? What stage are you in? Let's see. You said you were about half done.
About half done with the masters for the IDT. I've taken 501, 507, 530, 534, 553, and 2 590s.
Ooh,
so
okay.
I think I'm about half done.
I think, that's maybe more than half done.
More than half done?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if I'm taking this research class prematurely or not, but I don't exactly have an idea for my thesis yet. I had some ideas that I put in my memo. I've done some projects throughout the last couple of courses that both Professor Snyder and Professor Lazardi said, these might be ideas to expand into a thesis. And they were things that I enjoyed doing at the time, but they weren't things that I was really passionate about. So I'm not totally convinced those are what I want to go with yet. So I'm still kind of working up some ideas. So I was hoping that through the course of this class, I would have a more concrete idea.
Okay, that sounds good. And, again, the literature can take you there too. Yeah. It could show you what you're not interested in as much as what you're interested in. But that sounds good. One of the pieces of advice that I give to students always, and you've probably heard this a million times, that the only good thesis is a completed thesis. Okay. And so for some students, they maybe put more importance on it than needs to be there. And I understand you want to do something that you're passionate about, and that's important that you have some interest in it. But also, we have designed this program and designed this thesis project, so it's really just a one-semester thing. And it's supposed to be the equivalent of one course. And about as much, how much time do you spend on one course? Well, probably 3-4 hours a week or something. I think we're supposed to officially 3 hours in class and then 3 hours of homework outside of class. It shouldn't be more than that. So don't feel too frightened if it's not something like, the end all be all of your life passion. And I'm sure you'll find something that's perfect. So one of the things that Steve often says is, think about where you are in your career and where you want to be. Is there some skill that we can help you, give you an excuse to learn? If you think, well, I want to be able to make video, I'm terrible at it, I've never tried it, but it would help for my job. We're kind of open to this idea that the thesis doesn't have to look like one thing. It can be an experience that you're having. I have one student who's going to China to study smart cities, and her thesis is going to be a write-up of her experience. So that's like a whole different thing. And a thesis can be something creative that, personally you've wanted to do for a long time, and you want to organize your archives, or you want to do something, it needs to have something special to it that shows that you're engaged in the literature and what's happening in this field. So you're not, doing something we could have done 5 years ago. But other than that, we're pretty open to what that is. So think about, what do you picture yourself doing? What is it that you want to know how to do? What questions do you have about the world that, are you dying to answer? Some people are just really hardcore research types, and they have these questions and they want to know, and other people just want to get through, or they want to. One guy last year did he learned how to use 360 video. So he did like an unboxing of his camera, and then his thesis was really the process of how he taught himself how to do this video, and then the results, these were the videos he got from it. So, for some people it's something, how to use a drone. how can you use a drone if you're an automotive instructor? Is there something that you can use a new technology to do that hasn't been done before?
Sure.
So I don't want anyone to feel intimidated by this whole process.
Okay.
Does that help a little bit?
It does help. Yeah, it helps to broaden the spectrum of what's available, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then going to Steve's class on Monday night is a really good idea, right, James? Because Steve helps people kind of rethink their thesis. Like if you can't explain it in 3 minutes, then probably there's something you're having a problem with. And so he can help you kind of decide what your thesis is and isn't, and see if it makes sense to other people and that kind of thing. So that's open to everybody every Monday night at 7.
Okay. Is there a Zoom link for that? Was that in our class? Was that posted?
James, is there a Zoom link? I think it's the same link every time, right?
Yeah, it's the same link every time for us.
Mm-hmm. So it's on the bulletin board.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be.
Under something like Steve's link to Steve's class or something.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
So is that class the IDT Hangout, or is that something different? Because I attended a few of the Hangouts last semester, and they were very thesis project oriented, which was fine because I wanted to kind of get a glimpse of that.
Yeah.
So are these two different things, or are they one and the same?
I think his 7 o'clock is his thesis class, but it's open to everybody.
Okay.
Because a lot of times people take the thesis class when they're not quite ready, and then they might extend a semester and they want to feel connected, so they join the class.
I see.
All kinds of things happen. So we just want to help each and every one of you, and you're adults and you have other things going on, so we don't want to give anyone a guilt trip or any of that kind of thing. It's just we want people to know if they do extend, they've got to pay 1 credit every semester that goes on, or at least they have to pay 1 credit the semester they graduate. So if you don't get around to it, life happens, and you come back a year later and you want to graduate, that semester you're going to have to pay about $400, right, James? I think it's.
I have no idea.
It might be close to 500. It's not more than 500, I don't think, but it's significant. So you don't want to pay for thesis and then come back and pay that credit. Yep. If you plan it well, you won't have to do that.
Yeah.
You want to graduate the semester you're taking thesis, and then you'll save yourself that.
Yep.
Is the thesis class offered over the summer session, or is it just spring and fall? It is summer.
It's offered all the time, yeah. Okay. It's very individualized in summer. There's just a few students in it.
Okay.
But if you know you're going to do it in summer, then wait to take thesis. Yeah, take thesis in summer, and then.
Okay.
I do have an archive of all of Steve's classes if you guys need them.
That would be great.
Great. Thanks, James.
You're welcome.
You're the one who has it.
I'm the guy behind all of his videos and everything.
So those might be interesting. It might be a little painful to watch a whole bunch of them in a row, but they might be useful. And there's also the thesis repository that we always tell people to go back and look at what other people have done. What is an even better idea is to ask a professor you know and trust, hey, whose thesis should I read? Because some of them are like, B level, and some of them are A+ level, and you probably want to reach more toward the A+ ones, but they're just all in there, and we want to steer you the right way. So if you get to that point and you're not sure, you might want to just ask one of us, like, hey, I'm thinking of reading so-and-so's thesis. What do you think? And we'll tell you, there's some just really excellent examples of literature reviews and of theses that we can point you towards. And it's also related to your project. So we know if you're doing an infographic, then we definitely send you to the person, I think her name was Caitlin, who did the best infographic I've ever seen of the Arizona fire that happened. And we have like these really amazing thesis projects on all kinds of topics. So the other thing a couple other things I wanted to say, are you guys still with me? You're not worn out yet? Okay. There were a bunch of questions about the difference between qualitative research and quantitative research, and they made me laugh out loud because they were things like, is qualitative research really scientific, and is it biased, and is it accepted? So I remember when I went to graduate school, my professor said, qualitative methods is all about the things that you can't count very well. And quantitative methods is about things that you can count pretty easily. And that's really the difference. So it's not that one is better than the other. It's not that one's more scientific, and it's not that one's more or less biased. And you know that there's a wonderful book that's called How to Lie with Statistics. You can manipulate statistics just as easily as you can manipulate a human being, right? Your biases are, both methods contain a lot of bias. It's in the questions you ask, it's in the people you ask, it's in the way that you do your sampling. And so I just wanted everyone not to leave graduate school thinking that qualitative methods is somehow inferior, or it's just something sort of cute and small that people do when they have questions about people, because it's really bigger than that. It depends on what question you're asking. It depends, like you could choose, most topics you could choose either method, but your personality, like my personality goes more towards qualitative. I'm more interested in people's perspectives and experiences and attitudes. And so when I see something quantitative, it doesn't feel really truthful and juicy to me. It just feels like, okay, so you counted a bunch of what people said on a survey. I don't know if that's what they really feel, because I didn't sit down and talk with them for a long time, and I didn't get to know them. Usually qualitative methods takes a lot longer than quantitative methods. So you can sit in an office and say, okay, I'm going to do a survey. You get the results. With quantitative methods, the analysis might take you a while, but with qualitative, it's really about building relationships, getting to know people deeply, and that's not the kind of thing you can do in one semester at IDT, usually. I mean, yeah, usually that's going to be tough. But we've seen it happen. It can be done. So someone asked too about citation style formats, and our policy about that for, you're thinking about writing thesis projects, and is that we don't care what style you use, just use one. So in my field, APA is pretty much the standard. That's the one I use most often for journal articles and everything. But you can use MLA, you can use whatever it is you want to use. Some people use Son of Citation Machine to get those citations. Some of the people, what you shouldn't do is make up the citations yourself. Like we've progressed much further, and the machines can do that better in most cases. So you can get the citations straight from the databases in some cases. You can put your resources into Zotero and you can have it do the bibliography for you. I don't want you to suffer through what we did in high school or what I did in college, which is like writing, okay, author, title, because you just make too many errors that way. But those are some of the tools you can use. And then IRB, in case you do want to talk to human subjects and do a research project, you would need to give yourself at least like 6 weeks to get through the process. That would be the fastest you could possibly get through it. So that is just something to think about for projects. It's a process. You have to go show up in front of the board and tell them about your project. So you'd probably have to come to Utica to do that, or some people do an exempt application to see whether, is my project actually using human subjects or not. There's all different levels, but, and there's a website for the human subjects that tells you what those differences are. But so far I haven't heard anyone who's planning to do that route yet. And yeah, I think that's about it for me. Why don't we open it up to you guys and see what other things you have on your minds, if anything.
Could you expound just a little bit on what a literature review is?
Okay, sure. So the requirements for the literature review are spelled out pretty well in Steve's wiki, and there's a link to his thesis wiki, I think is what we're calling it now, on the bulletin board in our class. So you can go to that and it will tell you how many pages it has to be, and I don't know what else, double space, whatever. But basically the idea is that the literature review sort of synthesizes the literature about your topic. So do you have a rough idea of your topic area?
Not really yet. Yeah, something in education.
Something about education?
Something in education, yeah.
Okay. And technology in education?
Yeah, definitely. Technology and education, something expanding beyond just the classroom, something that I can create or provide for my students that will give them additional content that I wouldn't be able to give them in the classroom.
Okay. So the way that we've designed it, we start with the annotated bibliography. And so for that step, you would either go to the databases yourself or go have a librarian help you and try to pick up the literature that's the closest to what you found. So let's say you're doing, and this is the dumbest example, let's say you're using smart boards and you want to do some kind of thing about smart boards, then you might start with smart boards and then you might have to say, oh, there's not really much about that in the classroom. Okay, I'm going to have to look at, other classroom technologies, new emerging technologies, that kind of thing. And so the annotated bibliography is where you write notes about that and you say, oh, this is a really great article. This one helps me figure out how to work with younger children, or this one talks a lot about accessibility and for students with special needs, or that kind of thing. So you'll know what's there. The literature review is the next step and it's done lots of different ways. Some people do it kind of by themes. So they'll say, this is what the scholarly literature says about my topic. So what it says is that smart boards are so yesterday and they actually make it harder. Just like when PowerPoint first came out, everyone said, oh, PowerPoint's the best. And then when they actually started using, they realized that when people watch PowerPoint presentations, they turn off their brain completely. And especially if they're watching it and reading it, and then someone else is talking and they're saying something different that's not on the slide, it's not a good learning tool, right? So the literature review would be taking that and sort of synthesizing it, analyzing it, and saying, what have these people said about my topic? So some people do it chronologically, and they'll say, this technology started to show up in classrooms in the 90s. This is what it looked like. Or clickers, this is how they were used. This is what was thought about them. And then the new, these days, this is what people are thinking about clickers and how to use them more effectively. So it's taking those and kind of curating them in a sense, like looking at, okay, I've got 18 articles. 9 of them are really good and really going to relate to this. And what do they actually say? So it's, reading them kind of carefully and then saying, okay, anyone who's doing a topic about technology in the classroom has to think about, what is it, Bloom's taxonomy for learning, or, how to something about the way people learn, and has to look a little bit at the technologies that they're planning to use, and has to look a little bit at learning styles or something. I don't know. I'm just making it up. But does that help at all? Oh, you're muted.
There we go. Yes, it does. It does help. So I'm finding that what you're saying is each of those is sort of a stage or a different portion of almost like a draft, where the annotated bibliography is one step and then each step follows after that.
Yes. And you can skip the first step, but then it's just a little more complicated. It's kind of easier if you gather it all together. What a lot of people do is they go to the library, they get one thing that's related to their topic, and then they go through the bibliography of that to see what did this author use to get there? And that only works if it's sort of a new article. Like if it's 2015, you can go back. If it's 2010 and you're going back to what they used, you might be going back to 2001, which may or may not work for your topic. So, it seems like a lot of people don't want to use librarians anymore, don't bother them, but actually they're really, really helpful. They can, save you a ton of time, and they can help you find the keywords that will get you to what you're trying to do. Because people go in there and say, my topic is about clickers in the classroom, and they've been just, typing clickers, and they get a million articles that are in technology today, clickers, whatever, but they're not getting it kind of the scholarly basis behind it. And they don't, the studies that people have done on using clickers in different situations and that sort of thing. So you won't really know until you get out there what your lit review will look like, but that it usually it's like a triangle. There are usually 3 parts. So I can't tell you what those parts will be, but it's usually kind of a technology thing and maybe an educational philosophy thing. If we're doing web design, there's usually a virtual community part to it. Like, how do people act when they're in these virtual spaces? And what does the technology affect? How does the technology affect how they're acting? And so that sort of thing. So in those modules, I'll be giving you resources that are kind of like how to do an annotated bibliography. Here's an example, here's how it looks, and then how to do lit reviews. And there are a million resources about how to do literature reviews, and they'll give you lots of conflicting advice. It's super helpful. Right? I'm gonna try to find some that are pretty basic. And then you can also look at in the thesis repository for some of the better examples, and I'll try to pick out some of, 2 or 3 that would really show you, a student who understands what it means to do the literature review. So what's the current state of knowledge that we have about this general topic is sort of the question you're asking.
Okay.
And so each of your paragraphs will have citations in them, like Smith, 2006, and there'll be lots and lots of people, you're sort of saying, not just, James Ward wasn't the only one who talked about clickers, but there was also so-and-so talked about clickers in this situation. And, it's just laying out the landscape of the literature so that people feel like you know what you're talking about. Okay. And you're ready to, you're not ignoring what's known already. We don't want to reinvent the wheel for anybody, right?
Yeah.
So I think this semester, and especially the next 6 weeks or so, should really help you see, what's out there, what can be done, but also, you're thinking about a project that might help you in the future. So,
yeah.
When you dream about next fall, is there some technology? Do you want to develop a course that uses some technology? Do you want to develop a module? Do you want to develop a technology? Do you want to ask students what's missing with your courses? Like all those kinds of questions are, it's all open now. So it's kind of exciting. Lots of possibilities.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. And if I mess up, just tell me, I'm human. I got a lot of projects going on. I work at a community center. I don't work there. I volunteer there. And I do a lot of connecting between the refugee community in Utica and SUNY Poly. And sometimes there are hotter fires over there. And so I'll drop something. And so I want people to say, hey, you didn't answer my email and it's been 48 hours. I try to grade within a week and answer email in 24 hours. So if I don't, just say something, I don't want you guys to get stuck because we're slow. So, all right. Anything else on your minds this fine evening?
What's a clicker?
You want to share, William? What's a clicker?
Yeah, a clicker was something they used in the classroom long before we had smartphones or any kinds of technology like that. It was a device that would interface usually through infrared, like a TV remote, and the teacher would have a device attached to their computer, and it would usually go through the projector in some way, and the teacher would ask a question to the class, and everybody could answer in with their clicker, kind of like Jeopardy, but you could answer A, B, C, or D. Let's see if I can find a picture of one on Google.
Well, I'm dating myself. We didn't have clickers when I was in high school.
No, we had film strips you had to turn by hand.
Yeah.
But the
I actually, last year with my students, I used a program called Plickers with a P, and the idea was that you actually used, the instructor used a smartphone, and everybody answered a question, same idea, but they answered using these special, it was kind of like a QR code, but it was big on like an 8x8 index card, and each student's was customized to them, and depending on how they held the card up and what orientation would determine their answer, A, B, C, or D. And it was actually a really kind of a cool idea. I didn't do a great job integrating it into the class, but the idea was neat because all the student had to have was that piece of paper. And if they lost it, I could generate a new one for them just by printing it out.
And I've heard something similar that one of the instructors did that's just a grid at University of Albany. So they've got they've got 4 different colors, and when the instructor asks a question, then you can just use your paper to show what, how many people think A or whatever, and you can just she can just look at the audience and see that 3/4 of the audience understands the thing and wants her to move on. And so it's just a really quick way of connecting with the classroom.
Yep. Yeah, same idea.
So I'm sure every year there's a bunch of new technologies that they are trying out, and a bunch of them fail. A bunch of them are pretty popular. My son had to buy a clicker last year. He's at Syracuse University.
Oh, wow.
To buy one for a class. And of course they lost them right away, and they had to buy new ones, and it was a whole big thing.
Yep.
Yeah. It would have been better to have a piece of paper with some colors on it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's he studying at Syracuse University?
He's in the music industry program.
Great.
So, it's called the Bandier program, and it's a combination of business and industry and music creation. So he's in London this semester, and he just started an internship at Fader magazine, and he's terrified. Today was his first day.
Oh, my.
And it's just so close to what he wants to do that it's scary,
Yeah.
They do marketing for musicians and that kind of thing.
Cool.
So when I get off the phone with you guys, first I'm going to run down and vote. I got about 16 minutes, but the school's 2 minutes away. And then I'm going to see how the first day at Fader magazine went.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, nice to talk to everybody. I hope that was a little bit helpful.
Yep, very helpful.
Very good.
Okay, good. And just reach out anytime. All
Thank you.
Shall we say good night?
Night.
Yes, have a good night.
End meeting, folks. Bye-bye. Thanks.